Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name's Carter. I love talking about movies, comic books, superheroes, and horror movies. And speaking of superheroes, last week, season 4 of The Boys released its first 3 episodes on Amazon Prime. And I'm a big fan of the TV show The Boys. I tried reading the comic and I couldn't get into it. I genuinely do not like the comic whatsoever. However, the TV show is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I've watched the first 3 seasons countless times. I've watched them all the second they drop. And I've seen Gen V. I really liked Gen V, so needless to say, I was pretty excited for season 4 of The Boys. And yet when I started season 4, it kind of felt like something was missing. Something wasn't quite right, something wasn't quite there, and I really wanted to sit down and talk about what the problem with The Boys season 4 is. And so far, I've narrowed it down to at least 3 issues. Now, I should say before I go any further, I by no means think this is a bad show or bad episodes. I just think that when holding them up to previous seasons, like season 1, season 2, or season 3, I guess that's all the seasons. Wow, I can't believe I said that. Holding them up to the previous seasons, although no season has had like perfect writing, I think that the pattern and the formula is really starting to wear out. To where in season 3, even though they had extremely charismatic characters like Soldier Boy coming in and just kind of throwing a wrench into the season, or Stormfront, for some reason season 4 just hasn't had that wrench thrown in yet. Of course, you have Billy Butcher's diagnosis to where he has about 6 months to live, and yet for some reason I just don't feel the urgency. And that kind of brings me into my first issue with this season, and that's all the side plots don't really build up into one thing. And yes, this is just the first 3 episodes. Episode 4 releases this week, so by all means, the Shining Light subplot and the Colin and Frenchie subplot could somehow lead into what this season is going to be about, or what the bulk of this season will be, but for right now, it kind of just feels a little aimless, and that's frustrating. We're in the 4th season of this show. Next season will be the last season, and this show is all about the boys fighting Homelander, the boys using their skills to take down the corrupt supes, and it feels like we've seen very little of that, because so much of the runtime is devoted to Frenchie and Kimiko's subplots. And what confuses me is that they have the Frenchie and Kimiko subplot set up throughout the first 3 seasons for them to be together or not be together, and then season 4, it just feels like the relationship is off. It feels like it's completely different. And yeah, they're like family, and yet the Frenchie and Colin thing doesn't seem to be built up at all. The Shining Light with Kimiko, we've done that in season 2. I don't know why we need to revisit it, and I don't see what it has to do with this season as a whole. I know a lot of people are really upset about the Frenchie and Kimiko not being together thing. It's weird, I get it, even though season 3 ended like, we're family. It still feels like those 3 seasons of build-up had them gonna be together, or at least be a little closer than they are. Just kind of weird. And like I mentioned before, so much of that urgency that needs to be felt in this penultimate season is just kind of gone. It's on Shining Light agents, and that's going to be built up through the rest of the season with Kimiko's friend that she recognized, or it's on Frenchie and Colin and what their relationship is like, and how Frenchie murdered Colin's family. It's interesting, and the concept as a whole is actually very intriguing and could be compelling, but not for what is to be the final season, or what is about to be the final season. My second issue is one that I really won't spend too much time on, but I think that the commentary, at least politically, or at least as far as like social commentary, is kind of too on the nose. And I know it's like one side you have people who don't know the show is about them until you get to that VOT TruthCon, and on the other side you have people who are like, it's so obvious, how can you not tell? I'm on the side that's, it's really, really obvious. I mean, they said January 6th election, and I was like, oh, here we go. And I think it's easy for the writers to do political commentary or social commentary or anything like that, where you can point your finger at something and say, that's wrong, that's messed up, that's funny. And that's easy. You can make about 1 million January 6th jokes, because it's pretty funny when you joke about it. You can make about 1 million woke jokes like they did in season 3, or how Homelander is an allegory for Trump, or how Homelander is an allegory for political agendas. It's pretty obvious. But what is really difficult is to write complex and interesting characters. And I think this is where the season's cracks are showing. And so my big issue is going to be that this season just feels a little stale. It just feels like we've done all this before. Instead of the showrunners and the writers being interested and engaged in what is going to happen next, what is going to be the next kind of crack to be in Butcher and the boys' relationship, what's going to be the next crack in Homelander's psyche to finally push him over the edge. Instead, it feels like they're more interested in showing crazy stuff that they can get away with. Hey, here's the butthole on Neuman's phone. Here's a guy doing a human centipede with himself like 8 times and he has pink eye. Okay, that's like humorous, but it doesn't advance the plot whatsoever. Like, I appreciate the boys in its early seasons for pushing the boundaries and just being as wild and crazy as it was, but it always kind of moved the plot forward. Now it feels like it doesn't. It's just there to have the shock value that some people are used to be the edgelord value that some people know, and it's kind of getting stale for me. And the biggest thing that's getting stale is just the pattern of the seasons. Every season is like this. We need to fight and kill Homelander. The boys and Butcher are arguing. The boys and Butcher break up. Fractions of the boys split off and do different things. There's a new soup that's not Homelander, that's more evil than Homelander, and the boys, for writing purposes, go and fight and kill that soup instead of fighting and killing Homelander. And it happens time and time again. As much as I loved season 3, that season had probably some of the weakest writing when it came to Homelander's plot armor and just the arguments between Huey and Annie about Temp V that made no sense. And now we have Sister Sage and Firecracker, and as interesting as Sister Sage is, I'm actually really excited to see what they do with her character. If she's a one and done character, I'll be extremely disappointed. I do not want to see the boys team up and fight Sister Sage. I do not want to see the boys team up and fight Firecracker as the big bad of the season. The big bad of the show is Homelander. What I care about is how the show is going to continue to pit Butcher and Homelander against each other in a way that's meaningful, that's interesting, that's intense and engaging. And so far, season 4 has failed to do that. While I did like the episode where Huey is in the ducks and Homelander's above him, he's getting old, he's not focusing on hearing him. His hearing is going awry, like you can tell when he does that ringing thing, and then his zinc so he can't see through it or whatever, I don't know. But it's just, okay, how can we advance the plot? And instead, I feel like the writers are focused on how can we push the envelope of TV? How can we push the envelope of what we can show? And I think that's what's really failing for me at this moment. To where the first 3 episodes of season 4 are fun, they're funny, they're interesting, and yet they don't push the envelope. Episode 1 does. I enjoyed episode 1, and then after that, it's like, sorry, Butcher, you're out. And then it's rinse and repeat. I fail to see where they're going, and that bums me out. Because the show has such interesting characters, like Butcher, like Homelander, like Huey, like Starlight, like MM, and yet they just continue to do the least interesting things with them. There's only so much of Butchers and MMs and the boys, like, will they, won't they, what are they going to argue about next? Like, okay, either make Butcher like the full-on villain, or start trying to redeem him. It's getting stale. That's my issue with it. And I know for some people it's not. I know a lot of people really like the new season, and I like it. I don't think it's terrible, but there's definitely issues that I have with the show where I just rewatched the first 3 seasons the last 3 weeks so I could get caught up with this, and it definitely starts to feel a little bit stale. Like I'm just watching the same thing over and over and over again. And don't get me wrong, I love The Boys, so I'm fine to watch some of the same thing over and over and over again, but they're failing to do anything new or interesting with it, and so I think that's my big issue with season 4 as a whole. Of course, episode 4 airs on Wednesday or Thursday, I always forget, so I'd love to be proven wrong. I'm going to hurry and post this video. It's going to be pretty short, but just let me know what your thoughts on The Boys season 4 are down in the comments below. Do you love it? Do you not love it? Do you have any issues with it? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know, and as always, have a great rest of your day.